Alright, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are looking at the Daiwa Saltist MQ, the brand new re-release that Daiwa have sent out this year. And I've had the opportunity to test 4 of them in 2 weeks of extreme fishing in New Zealand. This video is going to go into my experiences with this reel and how it held up. On that trip, I did everything that I could do with the reel, from live baiting and heavy jigging 300-gram jigs down on deep drop to slow pitching and catching giant New Zealand snapper in the shallows on soft plastics. So strap yourself in and I'll tell you all about this reel. So back in July, I was fortunate enough to head out with the Burley Pro crew and do some filming and content for those guys off in New Zealand. On the side, I was actually playing with these 4 reels, the 21 Saltist MQs from Daiwa. I got one in the 3000 size, I got 2 in the 4000 size, and 1 in the 10,000 size. I basically tried everything that I could with this reel in the open water and the conditions that I had. So there's going to be 3 parts to the video. The first part, we're going to talk about the Saltist really quickly, talk about some of the features that it's got, and I'm going to show you some cutaway footage here of what I've stolen from Daiwa so that I can see the internals going on. There's some interesting stuff in there, but as soon as we get that out of the way, we are taking this reel onto the water. And I'm going to talk about whether or not the reels were suited for the applications that I put them through, because I was underwhelmed, I guess, or undergunned in one of the applications, and I'm going to talk about that. The other thing I'll do is overlay some serious footage of the reels in action with some epic shots of the New Zealand trip. Now, this isn't a vlog of that trip, that will come next week, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that bell if you're interested in seeing that and getting notifications when the video goes live. I guess the key point here is that if you're not happy with the amount of footage that you see in this video, well then in next week's video you're going to see more of it, and then the week after that you'll see more of the reel. So by the end of this video, if you're still umming and ahhing as to whether or not you like this reel, well then go watch those videos. It might sway your decision either way. The 4 reels were loans from Daiwa and they have since been returned, but the purpose of me having them was so that I actually had something to fish with while I was filming the other stuff for Burley Pro. Daiwa didn't pay for this review, nor did I have any commitment to make this video. The only commitment I did actually have was to keep my mouth shut and not release any of the footage or content prior to their release that they've just done. I will tell you that there's a bunch of features on this reel that should be talked about, and go have a look at a brochure if you can on that, but I reckon there's 3 main points that really separate this reel from its predecessor in particular. To start with, ergonomically, I am pumped they got rid of the T-handle. The replacement round ball is made from aluminium and it fits really nicely in the hand. It never actually slipped for me, whether it was wet or dry, bloody, or otherwise. I did notice across the different sizes from the 3000 to the 10,000 that the handle is actually quite a large handle. Out of the box, the reel felt like it was designed to pump and wind, and I had a really nice lever to do that. The second is the construction. I'll show you some cutaway here from Daiwa. And if you have a look at the reel, it's made from a single piece frame that Daiwa advertise as their monocoque body. They say with this design, the reel isn't going to twist around different fittings and screws as it's put under load by a big fish. And by having it as the one piece, it'll stay rigid and perform as it was meant to. Secondly, by making it of one piece, it also means that saltwater has a much tougher time getting into the reel and it's got fewer points of entry. I'll provide my opinions on whether or not that worked in a moment and at the end of this video, because most of my reels did go swimming at some stage on this trip. The third and the quick one before we get onto the underwater stuff was line management. The relationship between the spool, rotor and bail arm was really sweet. There's a bunch of features in there that I'm not going to talk about, but suffice to say the casting distance was really good, and I only got 1 wind knot in the entire fortnight of fishing. That's 10 to 12 hours a day, and I was really surprised about that. I did get some other knots, but they had to do more so with the rod than the reel, but I was quietly surprised about how well the line was managed on the reel. So let's start with the 10,000 size reel. She was rigged with 80-pound Tas line and 80-pound trace, and it was used for that heavy 300-gram jigging that I talked about before, as well as live baiting. Given that it was a 10,000 size, the reel had a bucket load of line in it, and the drag system, which is rated for 15 kilos of drag, was really nice and smooth. And I say it had a smooth drag because as I was towing the live baits around for what seemed like hours, the drag was set on a really light setting. And sometimes I've seen drags and reels in those settings come loose, and you have to continually adjust them to get the right amount of tension on the live bait. That didn't happen with this reel. Once that drag was set, it was nice, it was reliable, there was no real slippage as the day went on. After using this reel, I reckon it'd be really good for surface popping or stick baiting. Ergonomically on this kayak, it was actually quite a large reel to have, particularly when you consider the large butt on the bottom of the fishing rod that had it. I actually did a lot of my winding like this, and it did feel a little bit awkward to have. Not an issue on the boat, but on the kayak in future, I'll probably look at something else rather than a spinning model. The performance of the 10,000 reel was nice, and it had an overall toughness about it that was quite warranted. Out of the 3 remaining reels, 2 of them were 4,000 size. One of them was rigged with 30-pound Tasline braid and 40-pound trace, and the other one was a 40-pound braid and a 60-pound trace. The lighter of the two, the first one, was outstanding at my heavy, deep soft bait application. The heavier was a slow pitch spin outfit that I used to throw a bunch of jigs during the trip, but I did feel undergunned with that 4,000 size reel on, particularly when the group around me started catching kingfish that were over a meter, 15 kilo, 30 pound plus kingfish. Both the 4,000s gave me 12 kilos of drag, and the reel felt really appropriate for targeting that 10 kilo or 20 pound snapper. It was a really nice balance of a lighter reel with the grunt that was required in that saltwater spin category. If you're going to look at big pelagics though, maybe mahi-mahi, surffish, GT popping, kingfish, things like that, you're probably going to be looking at a reel that's like 6,000 or above. I thought that 4,000 was just a little bit weak in that category, but outstanding for the soft baiting category. During the trip though, I reckon my favorite reel was the 3,000 size reel. It would end up being the one that I'd use the most because the fish were hanging out in the shallows for basically the 2 weeks that we were there. The reel was rigged with 16-pound Tasline, and that stuff's got a bit of a cult following, so I wanted to give it a go, and Marty from Burley Pro hooked me up with that stuff. I rigged it on a light soft bait rod, and I would have cast that rig thousands of times over the 2 weeks at pins, rock walls, bommies, any really main feature that I could see in the water. That 3,000 size meant that the reel sat at 270 grams, and that really helped with that repetitive casting over and over. Running the light line and leader here increased the chances of hooking up the trophy fish in the shallows, and we were rewarded with this girl coming in under 2 meters of water, right at that spot there. Admittedly, running that light also meant that I got smoked a bucket load of times, and that was all part of it. I had some great experiences and often returned to the boat pretty devastated. That 3,000 size was absolutely outstanding for the light soft baiting application, and in my opinion was the pick of all 4. When I was actually packing it up, I got a little bit upset that I'd probably never see the reel again, and if I was to buy one, that would probably be the reel that I would go out and buy tomorrow. So when I told Daiwa I was going to do this review, I asked for a 4,000 size reel to do a giveaway, and they said yes. So in 2 weeks from today, we are going to give one of those away. To enter, you need to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below with 2 things. The first, what type of fish and species that you would target with this reel, and the second, what size braid you would sit on the 4,000 size reel that is up for grabs. Do those 2 things, and when stock arrives in Australia, you'll have the chance to have one of these brand new 4,000 size reels at your doorstep. So get involved. So before I finalise the video, Burley Pro and this channel are going to make these New Zealand trips a reoccurring and regular event. I intend on continuing to take product with me to test and review on this channel. So if you want to see one reel versus another reel or one brand versus another brand, let me know in the comments below and I'll take your feedback on board and definitely consider it when we go next time at the end of the year. So all the close-ups that you've seen in this video were actually taken after the trip occurred. And you'll see a bunch of wear marks and scratches and whatnot, so you can see that they've actually been put to the test. You can also see that after the trip, we have no failed parts, and mechanically, the reels are still good to go. No crunching or grinding, and everything was running smooth. So in terms of that single piece monocoque body to keep the salt out, big tick from me. In terms of salt buildup though, I did find it on the bottom of the reel where that join between the black body and the silver guards sit at the bottom. I've actually had it happen in some other reels that I'll show you here, but if you don't get on top of that, those corrosion areas do grow and the fitting does become loose. To clean up the Saltist, I used a little bit of inox spray and a rag, and that seemed to clean it up quite nicely. Now, through no fault of my own, unfortunately at some stage during this trip, all 4 of these reels did go for a swim in the salt water. As a result of those swims, I was actually expecting a little bit more of a negative outcome and some more problems when I got back to Australia and really had a look at the reels. To the reels' credit though, the only thing that I picked up adversely that had kind of been affected by that was that on one of the 4,000 size reels, the line roller had begun to stiffen up and not play as freely as it once did. To fix that up, I sprayed it with a little bit of inox and that bush became free and free flowing again. Traditionally on other reels, there's usually a bearing in that line roller, but on these reels in the Saltist, there's actually a bush there instead. So the big question here is, would I pay for the reel with my own money and can it be trusted to catch that trophy fish? The answer to those questions is yes, I would pay for it with my own money, and it already has caught me my trophy fish. 100% the reel didn't let me down. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Remember the giveaway and the footage that's coming next week. Stay safe. I'll see you next time.